Welcome back, everybody, to the Ox and the Rat. What a momentous day it is! It is Election Day in the United States, the morning after the hangover, and wow, we're still alive. Almost, who knows for how long? How are you doing? Safe on the other side of the planet there?
Good. I had the coverage kind of just in the background, just checking the polls, checking what's going on. A lot of the people that are around I work with are American, but they don't really seem to care much.
Maybe that's why they left.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are not wanting to get hopeful because that's what happened last time, and then
yeah, it looks like it's happening again. In record turnout numbers. Well, I don't know what that says. Well, I do know what that says, but maybe that's for another time. Anyways, today we've got a short fable. This one is The Gnat and the Bull. Are you ready?
Well, I was just eating some mandarin oranges. You know what they call those in the south of China?
What do they call them?
Cantonese.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oranges.
Very clever. Well, where are they originally?
Oh, yeah.
They're probably from the south of China anyways. That's where the tropical climate is.
Yeah. Should have been called Cantonese to begin with.
Man, if there's one thing, like, just going before we get back into this, if there's one thing I really enjoyed about like living over in Asia, it's like how random. Like, it seems like, and I'm from Canada and living in Canada, it seems like everything's the same here. And then being in Asia is like, there's so much variety of like destinations, sights, sounds, tastes. Like, it's so exciting. I miss that variety, and like, I really do. That's something I miss more than anything else. Just the excitement of well, let's hop on a train, get on a plane, and in a few hours you're somewhere very different. And yeah, miss that.
And it's usually warm and nice. Is it akin to Europe, or is Europe more homogenous?
Well, like the big difference in Europe is how the Gulf Stream affects England and yeah, I guess like in Central Europe, it's very similar. I found, it's cold. It has a wintry feel. But then, like, when I was in England, I lived there too, of course. Like, it's mild. It's really mild, and that's because of the Gulf Stream. So if you're in a country like France, the north, center, and south have very different climates because in the north, the Atlantic region, like, that's exposed to the Gulf Stream, so it's very mild. Getting a little bit more into the interior, it's has a bit more of that Central European seasons feeling, right? And then if you're in the south, then it's a Mediterranean climate, and places like Monaco, famously, like very, very warm, arid. Yeah, so it depends. When I lived in Vienna, and that was Central Europe, so that was very very seasonal. Felt like Canada, but other places.
Well, good thing you're not there now.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Canada now, so it's
cold. They had I was just referencing the attacks going on, seeming to go on.
Yeah, man. Europe is not as stable as it seems, although a lot of repressed anger, I think, based on my experiences. When you talk to real people, it's like, ooh, this is very different. I thought you guys were all like this, and it doesn't seem that way. Yeah.
I guess they have a historical basis for that too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, anyways, for years.
Yeah. Oh god, centuries. Anyways, let's get to it then. The Gnat and the Bull. Gnat, spelled with a G, flew over the meadow with much buzzing for so small a creature and settled on the tip of one of the horns of a bull. After he had rested a short time, he made ready to fly away. But before he left, he begged the bull's pardon for having used his horn for a resting place. "You must be very glad to have me go now," he said. "It's all the same to me," replied the bull. "I didn't even know you were there." I love how short this one is. So, do you want to guess the moral of this one?
No matter the imposition, always recognize. No, always be grateful for somebody's help.
Huh. Yeah, I guess so. That could be there. I could see that. This one's really interesting, and I think you'll see it like immediately when I say it. We are often of greater importance in our own eyes than in the eyes of our neighbor. The smaller the mind, the greater the conceit. That makes sense?
The smaller the mind, the greater the conceit.
We are
Are they
often
talking
of
about
greater.
small man syndrome?
Well, we are often we are often of greater importance in our own eyes than in the eyes of our neighbor. So if you think about it, and I'll do what you normally do. Let's break it down. You've got the fly, and he's like, I'm gonna rest here on this bull, and the bull's like, and he's like, you must be. The fly says, "You must be very glad to have me go now," and then the bull's like, "I really don't care," you know, because the fly thinks that he was an imposition or whatever, and the bull just didn't even care. And yeah, the message is we are often of greater importance in our own eyes than in the eyes of our neighbors. So the smaller the mind, the greater the conceit. You're talking about small man syndrome. Yeah, but you could apply that to a lot of things. Do you have any initial thoughts?
I'm trying to think of anybody doing something to me where I was like, whatever, I didn't even notice. But I'm pretty perceptive, so even if a fly took a ride, I might. If I was Joe Biden in that speech, I probably would have noticed that fly.
Oh God, yeah, Mike Pence. No, that was Mike Pence.
Yeah, right. Mike Pence, another old white guy.
Another old white guy.
Let's see. I can't think of anything anybody's done to me. Have I done anything to anybody else? Nah, not off the top of my head. All I can think of is kind of like, little things, helping people out, showing them the ropes, type of deal.
Well,
which is not a yeah.
I'll tell you, being a university student, academics are, in their own eyes, so important, and I think I'm learning more and more that they don't really contribute much of anything. So I've just finished this book, Anti-Fragile, and I loved it. It's very me, but so I have a bias there. But I think Nassim Taleb, if I'm pronouncing his name right, the author, does a great job in pointing out how frequently, like, theories, we focus on a story, a narrative, but the phenomenon, the events that happen often don't match it or precede the theory, right? So we try to explain the world, and in trying to explain it, we get it wrong. And it's like, I talk to all these people, these academics, and they're always, they're like, "Oh, I wrote this book, I did this." It's like, so the fuck what? Who cares if you wrote a book? I think this is part of the problem. We're all that I see around me is like, everybody's talking and nobody's doing, and like these academics are like, here's my list of readings. I will sit here, you will talk, and I will get paid. So like, what have you done? You haven't done anything. Like, I just paid you to read something that I wrote, essentially, or I'm paying for a curated list of readings from you that I could have gotten for free anywhere else. And the key is like, what have you actually done? And then even when they've done things, people will measure what they were looking for, right? So, we there's a lot of talk about, data driven policies and stuff, but like when you start with the theory that is not necessarily based on reality, you try to like fit the data into that, right? So we end up with shitty policies, procedures, and ideas about how the world works, and then one mistake topples the whole thing, right? It so like if one mistake could bring down an entire theory, which frequently happens, like theories change all the time, then what was the point of the theory? Like, what did it do? And I think that's what a lot of what we hear or see on TV, right? So we're talking about the election, and you, I haven't watched uh, election or political coverage for the longest time, and I was watching it last night, and I was like, I remember why I hate this so much. It's a bunch of talking heads who somehow get paid for zero benefit to society to say, well, this is what's happening. This is what I think. And you know what? Like 90% of them are wrong. And the 10% that were right were kind of guessing. So what was the point of the entire enterprise? What are you getting paid for? What value do you give back? Right? And
Entertainment.
yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So, in my experience, I'm at university, like I've said before, and like these professors, they just talk about theories, and then I hear people talking about, and then we're put into discussion groups where we have to talk about theories together, and I'm just allergic to it. I have become so. Like I remember one of our topics, I think I mentioned it before, in like a tech class, was which of these approaches to assessing the usefulness of technology do you like best? I'm like, I don't like any of them. Like, this is ridiculous. Why do we have a theory to assess technology? What works is what works. You don't need to problematize it. And I'm like, why is technology why do we need technologies? We've been doing, maybe just writing things on a piece of paper is fine. And like, you have to, I think one of the problems with academics is like they have to provide value by producing something, so it has to be new. So they're always newing what's old and like complicating things over and over again, and at the end of the day it's just like, you have accomplished nothing. And somehow society values you because we have this weird association between like uh like between academics and progress. But frequently progress doesn't happen that way. Usually it doesn't. And most of the time it's just addition by subtraction is what works best, right? Via negativa, as Nassim Taleb would say. So I wonder, as a former educator, the value that, you know, where we were before, or where I was before, it was, a lot of value was placed on teaching and teachers. So I always wonder, like, what was that worth it? Like, was that a conceit that I carried, and like, what value do I actually give back? Did I actually give back to my students? What are your thoughts about education's role in that sense? Is it like, are we, was I or are educators adding value, or are we just complicating what's really simple?
Um, it depends on the educator. So first on the university thing, I think going into university, one of the roles maybe of the professor is it kind of gets you interested in the subject more. But I found as soon as I went into university, I didn't I was never taught anything. You're talked at, and this person was really knowledgeable about history, so they told you this story about history, and you just listened to it, and maybe like that's kind of how we think of history, but there's all these like intricacies of, I don't know, little events happening that set off other events, and like economics and all this sort of stuff. But there's nothing really concrete that you are taught. To me, I don't know. It's like you said, you read some stuff, and then the guy talks, and you're supposed to like gain some insight from the guy talking. But I think it should be, you're only 18, you just graduated high school, which you probably didn't pay attention to. There should probably be a bit more scaffolding, perhaps. Like there's no skills that you're taught. You know what I mean? In regular undergrad, and then as far as actual school goes, that's probably a lot of like high school. There's probably a lot of flies or whatever, the gnats, because a lot of people thinking their specific subject is like the be all end all, and like this is the best. You really have to know this stuff. Like you really have to know history, or you really have to know chemistry. And by the time you leave school, you're like, okay, well, I'm never going to use either of these subjects potentially. But in that time, they're really like just saying this is really important. So it depends on the teacher. Whereas other ones, they can really open up pathways. Like, oh, maybe I was never interested in art, but then you have a really great art teacher that makes you super interested in a specific subject. So I don't think they are so important. You can learn a lot of stuff off of YouTube now, essentially. But I think it's like getting people excited about something, and then in the end, when you finish school, it's more like a lot of it's what social skills did you learn? How do you complete a task? How do you stay organized? Things like that.
Yeah, well, I was just arguing about this in my class the other day. It's like, I didn't learn anything, like from social sciences in particular, and I'm a social scientist. I am a master's degree, and I think about like, what was the value of that? Like, I basically have like a Rolodex of knowledge from it, which is useful in conversations. I'm knowledgeable, but I'm knowledgeable about whatever was curated for me, right? And I didn't really take away any skills. Like I can write long pieces, long academic texts, and I have sort of an analytical brain from it, but you know, it was just a bunch of reading. And like, yeah, I it's this focus on newness, and like that I think is at the heart of the problem. And like everybody is talking about, you gotta read this book, you gotta read that book. It's like, well, no, you don't.
Give me the cliff notes.
Because whatever the theories are today, they might well disappear, because we put an outsized importance on people like doctors. Take your pick. I'll go after everybody, like doctors, the PhD class of like everybody, as far as I'm concerned, who isn't applying knowledge in a specific way. Like, you know, engineers totally understand that. Physics, I think that's an outlier. But like, you know, what have they contributed other than words? Like, point out to me, like, what have you actually contributed? How does beyond your book, what does your book do for people? Is it just something we read? I don't get it. I don't. And think about doctors. Okay, my cancer treatment, I was so dismayed by walking into the radiation checkup. Like, radiation was awful. It was the worst part of it. The chemo was like, I walked right through it, didn't bother me. And I'll get to that in a minute. But like the radiation thing, I was like, why am I doing this? I'm cancer free, quote unquote. That's what you told me. So now you're potentially giving me cancer to get rid of my cancer. And I got like, there's a checkup midway, and talking to the person, I was like, why am I doing this? And they're like, because that's the standard of care. And I was like, okay, well, at least you've answered my question after waiting all this time. I guess you'll continue radiating me because that's what you do. Like, and talking to my oncologist, all that person did was put the cocktail together, and that seemed to be it, and check in with me once in a while. And then I was like, well, look, I didn't do any of those things you talked about. You said all of this stuff was going to happen to me. None of it happened. I did the opposite of what you said in regards to exercise and nutrition, for example. And I'm one of the best case scenario outcomes. Like, and it was like, yeah, well, that happens. Like, wait, what the hell is going on here? Like, how are you able to have this high position in society, this high esteem, and you're able to just shrug off things that go against your own counsel? Like, it's wild, man. And the same thing happens at universities. When you talk to these people, like, they're like, I was like, I don't need to talk about this theory. Why? What is the value of doing it? How does this actually apply to anything? Like, well, we like to have a theory to put things in. It's like, what about your instincts? What has worked for you in the past? And that's where things, I think, I don't know if I'm making any sense. It just bothers me, like, that we put so much value on certain professions, and I really don't know, when it gets down to it, what they have added overall. I think that they are quite conceited in the way that they treat new information that goes against what they have been taught to tell people.
Potentially. I think it can be maybe beneficial. I mean, if you had no theories at all, no new ideas, no potential avenues to go down that may or may not work, and then maybe they don't work, you can still learn off of the negative thing that didn't work and build off of that. Whether it builds to something concrete, I don't know, like social norms or social ideas or things like that. If no one ever really advanced their thinking on it, I don't know if that's parallel to what you're saying, but if we didn't have any advancement in that, then perhaps there's less new ideas. I don't know. But well, I think it makes sense. But it's also the same thing like making art. Like I do design or whatever, some paintings or things like that. I take pictures all the time. What's the point of taking these pictures? They go on your computer and they just sit there. I do the art, whatever. I post it on Instagram and it's done. So what's the real point of it? I don't know. There is none really, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, but we're not talking about like I'm not saying or putting a huge amount of importance in your work, right? And you're not either, right? I'm talking about the conceit that comes with certain professions, right? The great importance that people put in themselves with the degrees after their names, right? MEd, MA, PhD, whatever, and you brought up a really good point, which is, well, maybe we learn from the mistakes. But that's really important, because what was the point of the theory in the first place if one mistake can prove that it was wrong?
I guess to show that it's wrong. Well, isn't it? Yeah, a theory is just to be proven. So whether it's wrong or right, you just got to prove something.
What if things are already proven by phenomena? Like, what if, we already know a lot of these things? Let's go back to the doctor example. There are many people in the past Greeks, for example, who said, who talked about fasting, and how the cure to most things was subtraction, fasting, minimal activity, not adding something, right? We knew these things a long time ago. our quest for newness and knowledge and whatever, it often was right there in the past. The truth is in the past so often.
Mm-hmm.
And now we put all of this conceit or like importance into titles for people who haven't really accomplished anything. You know, what has how, here's a great one. How many years has medicine added in aggregate to the human lifespan? When you put together the harm that medicine has also caused, because there are two ends of that spectrum.
5 years.
What would you say?
5 years?
It's around. My understanding is it's between 1945 and around like the 2000s.
Oh,
maybe about 5 years.
Yeah, so
maybe
that's what I say. But that's at the end of your life. They're putting on
yeah, and that's
they're putting on like 75 years to the start of your life, because most kids died during pregnancy.
Yeah, but beyond that, I mean, we've gone nowhere. You know, and yeah, that's important. Like hygiene is important, but beyond child mortality and stuff, we've done very little to advance our lifespans. And again, like you said, it's at the end of your life. We're living longer, sicker.
Mm. I think it's
Hooray.
Starting to turn though. Like you see some of the older people, like mostly movie stars, because they have the money and stuff. But you start seeing them like Schwarzenegger and whatever that guy is, Stallone, and all those people that are shot up with human growth hormone or whatever, TRT, and they still look good. I mean, I don't know. There's Mel Gibson's dad, who was like 93 in a wheelchair, and they filled him full of stem cells, and now he's up and walking and apparently doing fine. So I think the new medicine, I think all that stuff that we had, like all the pills and things like that, which we were using, and techniques, those are pretty old. But the new stuff that's coming out with stem cells and all that, I think that can potentially, and that was a jumping off point, like all that old stuff that doesn't work is a jumping off point for all the new stuff, which can potentially work.
Well, I would just say it's an error in logic to assume that, you know, we needed the failures to get to the correct actions. Because I mean, if we're talking about stem cells, that is human. Like that is going back to the start, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
having the ability to utilize nature better in the way it's intended to. Totally agree. But, you know, even in agriculture and so on, we've known about regenerative practices for a long time. We just need to apply them. We just caught up in this idea that like new is better, or different is better. So let's provide a technological solution to everything. And it's not true. I mean, cancer, beyond like a few clear examples, such as mine, thank God, has advanced nowhere. We've added like 2 months total in the past like 100 years or something like that, in spite of the billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars invested. So what's the point? I question everything. I question doctors. I question academics. And because all I care about is what have you actually done? Show me what you've proven to do. So like the bull, I'm starting to think, you know, like, I don't even care. I don't know. I don't even recognize you. Your title means nothing to me.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Your advice.
A doctor is a medical doctor is a PhD in history as well. They just, I mean, it's different for a surgeon, and they have a very technical skill and whatever, but those are the same. You're just learning about a bunch of facts, and you just apply those facts, and it's hard to go outside of those facts because you've never probably done the research unless you're involved in it. So this is what you know, this is what works. How else do you figure something out?
Yeah, and like take a family doctor, for example. I'm sorry if you're listening and you're a family doctor. Like, you don't impress me at all. Like, you just have
Much.
the same book. You still have the same book of facts that you've had forever. You walk in. What are all my experiences? Walk in. It's like, let's check this, check that real quick. Okay, what do you want? All right, I'll prescribe that for you. Okay, solved. You didn't solve anything. You just gave me something
Well, here's one
out of your textbook.
I had,
Hmm?
which is like
Oh, good.
is a pretty tough one to diagnose, I would say. So during the quarantine, I was sitting around a lot. I don't know. I tried to do a bit of Wim Hof, which I feel like caused this, but I don't know. So I'm sitting around, and after a while, 2 weeks of sitting like doing nothing, um, my legs start vibrating. Just non. You can't see them moving, but it feels like they're just vibrating, like zzz. Like I don't know what's going on. I thought the building was shaking, and so then days and days keep going by. I'm like, what the hell? This doesn't. It's not going away. Eventually, I have to leave my quarantine, and then I go to the hospital. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on. Legs are vibrating. They're like, okay, tap tap. Yeah, look at my finger. Okay, so they're checking to see like, did I have a stroke or something? I don't know. Like my neural pathways, are those all fine? Which is a valid test, but it's not going to conclude anything for my vibrating legs. And in the end, they're like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. So you just have vibrating legs.
Yeah, I like some things. I think we're both probably prone to hypochondria. I've become a lot less so since
Well, this
my
was
actual problem.
this was a legitimate thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not discounting it, but like it might have been nothing, and it probably had everything to do with being sedentary, right?
But that's why it took 2 weeks.
You know,
I was like, I don't know what's going on. It's just annoying, but maybe maybe it's like a pinched nerve, or maybe who knows what it is. But
yeah.
I think it might have been. I thought it might have been the Wim Hof thing, because it was like, I think it maybe did it wrong, hyperventilated a little bit, and just like messed something up. I don't know. It was weird, but it took like a month and something to go away. Could have been an allergic reaction. I have no idea. And then I get it every once in a while, like, but it doesn't last as long. Weird.
Yeah, and again, like for me, it's just an example of what we're talking about, right? Like you go and look for solutions, and usually they're additive, or nothing comes of it. And I guarantee you the solution to whatever the issue is almost certainly not going to be found in adding something, right? Or looking to somebody for advice. It's in diet, it's in exercise. Yeah, it's just those things. Maybe you could fast more or something like that. I mean,
Well,
the
I'm
ancient
already
Greeks
one meal a
understood this.
day.
That's I can't do that anymore. I just disappear if I have one meal a day.
I'm still fat.
I just lose so much weight with my activity levels. But yeah, well, that's good. Then you've got that check. And then did you think about, well, what am I eating, right? And then it's so simple. Yeah. Then good. You've got vitamin C, but are you getting adequate protein? Are you getting adequate cholesterol?
Yeah, there's nothing adequate.
Yeah. Well, then there it could be, right? It is usually so simple.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't my shaken leg thing, but that's being fat. But yeah.
Whatever it is, it's simple, almost certainly. And the point is, you went somewhere for help, didn't get it, and what was the value of that time spent, right?
And money spent.
Anyways. Oh yeah, that's right.
Well, sometimes you got to check them out. You never know. It's like your cancer thing. Like,
well,
do you want to go? Yeah, but like, okay, I have this thing. I could just be like, oh, it'll go away on its own. Or do you want to go get it checked out? The main thing about going to the hospital is trying to, you're just hoping that it's nothing, and then it just goes away. Put some cream on it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Love the lotion, rub the lotion on the skin,
Yep.
or you get the hose. Anyways, well, this has been a chaotic one, but yeah, what else can you ask on election eve day, whatever it is?
Well, I can ask for a
Uh,
prediction.
You're gonna ask for a prediction. Trump's gonna win by a narrow margin. This is, and what comes of that is the scarier question. Um, I think something dramatic is about to occur as Americans wake up to the fact that their system is not representative, that the electoral college is wrong, and that the two-party system is a nightmare. I mean, think about what one party has been able to do over 4 years by just bucking the trends and saying, that's, tradition's nice and everything, but we will stack the court. We just remember this, that there was a Supreme Court pick and we had Barack Obama had every right to put it in place, but because of the way that the system works, the Republicans were able to say no. And it turned out that the only reason that tradition was no predictor of what's going to happen. Like, they just decided, screw you. We're not going to do it, right? I think militancy is gonna. There has been a rising militancy among the left, and I don't subscribe to it, but I think it's going to come out of this even more so militant, and like, I'm concerned. I'm genuinely concerned about the implications of Trump winning a second term with an even lower, seems to me, an even lower popular vote percentage than in the previous one. Republicans have not won a majority of the popular vote, as far as I can recall, for the past 20 years, 20, 30 years. And yet the election results don't reflect that. That's got to be at the heart of all of this, that the system is not representative of its citizens. And I'm not saying Canada's much better, but yeah, be worried, and Trump wins. There you go.
Yeah. I was predicting a hanging Chad 2.0.
Close. Yeah, close.
Did they get the Chads fixed?
Yeah, how are they still voting by paper? How is anybody still doing this? It's ridiculous. Anyways, whatever, man. It's fucked. So there's my prediction. It's fucked.
Well, we'll know tomorrow, probably.
Oh, or final thoughts about final thoughts about the fable. You agree with it? We are often of greater importance in our own eyes than those of our neighbor. The smaller the mind, the greater the conceit. What do you think?
Oh, of course. It's pretty hard to care about everybody, especially living in giant cities. So you got to care about numero uno.
Yeah, well, the smaller the mind, the greater the conceit. I think so. I think that evidence shows that people who we place so much importance on just for having a lot of facts in one area, they tend to have a very narrow view of the world. Hence, smaller the mind, and hence greater the conceit for those things that they don't understand.
True, but would you say that's like a fault of almost everybody as well? Everybody's problems and issues are obviously way greater and more important to them.
Well, that's one half of it. The other, and yes, I agree generally. We have an outside view of our own importance just based on the fact that that's our worldview is from our own eyes. Mm-hmm. But I think the smaller the mind part, so it's kind of like a two-part fable moral. Like, the smaller the mind, the greater the conceit. I think that can be is a symptom of the problems in our society, that we're always looking for the new, rather than looking back to what has worked. Those anti-fragile concepts that have led us through, those heuristics, rules of thumb that have led us through centuries before, we even knew what a theory was. So I think that we should be questioning everything, because people who have a very narrow skill set are more prone to thinking highly of themselves and looking down upon others. And that's the conceit. So I agree with this 100%, both parts.
And you got modern versus quote unquote primitive, which is where a lot of our medicine came from. But we
believe in the primitive. The truth is in the past. There you go.
Put it on a shirt.
I like it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Chaotic one, but we're done. Election day coverage. Go and find out who won.
Go team.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.